The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
The following program is closed captioned for the thinking impaired.
By tomorrow, I will rule the world!
You think he's gone? He's not gone. That's the whole point. He's never gone.
Is this some radical new therapy?
You see?
Well, I must have not been paying attention when you were just talking to me. Do you think that you could repeat the question and I listen more attentively? There must have been something in all of that nothing that wasn't quite so easy to see. And I must have missed something when you were just talking to me.
Alrighty. Hey, how you guys doing? Tom Duggan here on the Paying Attention podcast. Let me clear my throat a little bit. I'm a little verklempt from the incredible coffee that I got from Sean, the barista. And Sean's going to have we keep saying this, and it hasn't happened yet because the last couple of times I called him up here, he was nervous and he wasn't ready. But I promise you by the first show in May, Sean the barista is going to have his own segment on the show. And we have lost Fred and Meredith. Breaking news.
Forever?
Yeah, we've lost Fred and Meredith. They got I'm pretty sure I can't say who it is, but they just pulled a really big contract with somebody running for the United States Senate because they do political consulting, and it's really kind of taken all their time. And they do a little bit of traveling, and usually it's Wednesday and Thursday when they travel, so they haven't been able. I said, well, how about you guys just do it by Skype? Translation, can we just have Meredith by Skype? And
yeah, we could crop Fred out.
Yeah,
I mean, I have the ability to do that.
Right? And they were like, no, we're usually on the road. And I'm like, well, can't you Skype in like from your phone? Like, you drive, she'll be in the passenger seat, and she can Skype in with her phone while you guys are driving around. He's like, no, that's not going to work. So we are looking for an anchor. We need a female anchor. And so in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be trying some people out. I'm going to be interviewing some people. We'd like to get a good-looking female anchor that can do what Meredith did, but I don't know that we can find anybody that can do what Meredith did, so we're just going to try and figure it out. We might bring Kiana back from time to time. I get a lot of requests to bring Kiana back.
I look really, really good in a skirt. I'm
You
just
do?
not
Yeah,
I'm not very well-spoken, and I don't read well.
Listen, if I'm going to flirt with anybody, it's going to be Sean the barista. At least he's gay.
That's a fair
Right?
point.
If I flirt with a straight guy, that's not going to work.
No, you got really no chance.
Flirting with a gay guy really doesn't work for me, but maybe it'll work for other people. I don't know. I'm game, right?
Or maybe it works for Sean.
Or maybe
you're an attractive man.
I'm sure it does. So we have no Fred and Meredith, and we're going to be looking for at least a female anchor. Maybe we'll do two and see if we can get the dynamic back that we had with Meredith and Fred. In the meantime, we've given Paul the week off. His dad passed away, and so our prayers to Paul Morano and his family. He had been sick, and Paul had been spending a lot of time up there with him, and he passed away, I guess, a couple days ago. So he's doing family stuff today. I told him he could take the day off. And we have a guest coming in. He's not here yet, but we have a guest coming in, Joe Espinola he's a former Lowell police officer. I think Lowell, maybe Drake. But I know he's a former police officer, and he is running for state senate for the Senate seat that is now held by Barbara L'Italian. I like to call her Talking Point L'Italian, but that seems kind of disrespectful. And I'm trying really hard to get along with her. Like, we have this love-hate relationship with her. And I'm just trying to be good because I'd like her to participate in the stuff that we do. But we invited her to the bash again this year, our charity bash.
How did that go?
She didn't show up. And last year she was supposed to show up. Her entire staff of her office bought a table, and they came, but she didn't. And so I expected this year she would be there, and she wasn't. And I know that I shouldn't be making decisions when it comes to the show or the newspaper based on who shows up at our charity bash, but sometimes I do because I'm a human being. And it grates me that we have a packed room of voters that she can take advantage of, that she could have come to, and she probably would have gotten a couple of votes out of the room, and we would have given her a microphone. We would have let her get up and say something or, make a pitch or whatever she wanted to do like Jeff Deal did, candidate for U.S. Senate. But she didn't show up. And she didn't even bother to call and say, hey, look, I can't come, but here's $100 for the scholarships for the ROTC kid or for the Whittier kid or whatever. We gave out a lot of scholarships that night. We got nothing out of her. And it's hard for me to go out of my way to try and promote a candidate or give a candidate an opportunity to promote themselves when I've given them opportunities and they just blow it off. So we have a number of people running for her seat. She's stepping down as a state senator. And she's running for Nikki Tsongas's congressional seat, the seat that's at least being held right now by Nikki Tsongas. There's a lot of people. There's like 15 people in that race. Quite frankly, I don't see how Barbara gets past the primary with Juana Matias in that race. Barbara L'Italia needs the city of Lawrence to win. Juana Matias is a Latino. She's from Lawrence. And she's going to win Lawrence. She's got a Lawrence address, and she's got a Spanish last name. So no one's going to beat Juana in Lawrence, and that, I think, kills Barbara's chances of winning. Her seat now, Barbara's seat, state Senate seat, you have former senator, the guy that held the seat before her, Barry Feingold, is rerunning for that seat. And Barry's got more money than God, and his wife's got even more than that. And so he's automatically the front runner as the former senator. He's a former candidate for state treasurer. And Barry's not a bad guy. Like, he's an okay guy to, like, go have a coffee with. But I just remember when he was a state senator, all he did was carry Willie Lantigua's water, the mayor of Lawrence at the time. And he's one of the guys that walked through the $15 million bailout bill. I sat in the room in the legislature when he testified for that bill, for that loan, to give Willie Lantigua $15 million because Willie Lantigua blew $15 million more than his budget allowed. And what he and Dave Teresi at the time told the legislature was just a total friggin' lie. He said that if we don't give him the $15 million, Lawrence is going to have to lay off police officers. Lawrence is going to have to lay off firefighters. And in a city like Lawrence, we shouldn't be doing those things. And so the legislature approved a $15 million bailout loan for Willie Lantigua in Lawrence. Willie took the money. Willie blew the money. And then he laid off 29 cops, 28 firefighters, closed 2 fire stations anyway.
Wow.
After he got the money. And so I went over to Barry Feingold, who was the senator at the time, and said, hey, you can ask for the money back? Because I sat there when you sat in front of the legislature and you told them that Lawrence needs this money to stop the layoff of cops and firefighters, and you guys gave him that money, and then he blew the money, and then he laid off cops and firefighters in it. You can ask for it back. It's a simple question. I couldn't get an answer out of it.
Well, if it's a loan, doesn't he have to pay it back at some point
the city's
anyway?
the city's got to pay it back, but the whole premise behind the loan was to stop the layoff of cops and firefighters. And he got the money, and it didn't prevent the layoffs of cops and firefighters because he used the money for stupid shit. He used the money for other stuff, as we knew he would. Those who testified against that bill, that $15 million bailout loan, laid it out really, really succinctly for the legislature. If you give Willie Lantigua $15 million, he's not giving it to the cops, and he's not going to give it to the firefighters. And we were right. But when we went back to them as individuals, like Barry Feingold, and said, hey, WTF? Are you going to at least are you going to ask for the money? Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to penalize him? Are you going to not give him more money when he comes in? And it was, his Barry Feingold's answer to everything. Well, geez, it really needed it at the time. Nothing you can really do. And geez, hey, Tom, you should stop smoking, Tom. Tom, I've been telling you for a long time you should stop smoking. It's always this mamby-pamby, sissy answer that you get that doesn't tell you anything from Barry Feingold. And then when he's done with his little sissy, mamby-pamby answer, he does everything he can to change the topic to something else. Usually you, because most people like to talk about themselves, right?
That's true.
So he's very skilled at deception. He's very skilled at distraction. He's not very skilled at answering real questions. We called Barry about our charity bash this year. Asked him if he would come. The answer was no. Fine. At least I got an answer. I didn't get an answer out of Barbara L'Italian. So at least I got an answer. And then I wrote him back and said, well, geez, we're raising money for scholarships for kids in Lawrence. Would you like to make a donation to help the kids in Lawrence? Joe Espinola gave us money, right? He's running for state senate. Barry Feingold, not a dime. Not interested. Not interested in anything the Valley Patriots doing. And I think it's because I don't kiss his ass like the Tribune does. I don't kiss his ass. I don't ask only the questions he wants me to ask. And I certainly don't accept the sissy answers that I get when I don't get a real answer. We knew Barry was running because last August when Jeff Riley made an announcement that he was quitting as the superintendent for the city of Lawrence, I showed up at that event at the South Lawrence East School, and for the first time since he was on the ballot last time, I saw Barry Feingold. So I walked over and I went, "Hey Barry, what are you running for?" And he says, "Whoa, what do you think why do you think I'm running for anything?" I said, "Because the only time I see you is when you're on the ballot for something, and we haven't seen you in 4 years, so you must be running for something." And he went, "Well, I don't know." I get the typical, I don't know. Geez, hey, Tom, stop smoking. Tom, that's terrible smoking. It's very bad for you. I'm concerned about you, Tom. That was the answer that I got. So we now know he's running for Senate. We know Mike Amano from Lawrence. He's a Lawrence firefighter, is running for Senate. It's going to be a very packed race. The Congress race is going to be a very packed race. And so my goal on this show and in the Valley Patriot newspaper is going to be to highlight all of the candidates the best that I can. But I'm going to be honest with you, I'm a human being and I'm not perfect. So the people that I'm going to highlight more are the people who actually do stuff, people who actually answer questions, people who show up at charity events and actually give something, unlike some people who show up at charity events so they can be announced, and the minute you announce them, they leave. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we have that happen too. As soon as I announce that so-and-so candidate for whatever is in the room, I look up 5 minutes later and they're gone, right? But at least they were there, so I do announce them. If there's people in the room, I always announce them if I can. I forgot to announce Joe Espinola, who was actually in the room during my charity bash, so we want to make it up to him by getting him on the show. And he has showed up, so I want to just burn through a couple of really quick things. I'm going to take a break and we get him up here and talk about his campaign. We have got a great story, Mr. Jonathan.
All right.
You know, normally we come in here, we talk about news stories, and we're shaking our head about the stupidity and ridiculousness of, most things that people do in the news. But this week we've got a really great story. So most people who follow me know that I chase police calls in Lawrence. I get my scanner, and I chase police if there's a shooting, if there's a fire, if there's an accident. We like to go. We like to go live on Facebook, so people who follow us don't have to wait for tomorrow's newspaper. They know what happened. And I was out driving around. While I'm out doing all of this, I've got a friend, Deb Carberry, who helps homeless people. And I'm like, what are you helping homeless people for? Like, what's that all about? So she kind of told me what she does. She runs a group called Someone Cares, Everybody Cares, something like that. Someone Cares, care packages for homeless people. She gets a bunch of kids together once a year, and they put care packages together with socks and underwear and toiletries, underarm, things that homeless people need. And she said, while you're out driving around chasing police cars, would you mind, if you see a homeless person, give them a care package? I'm like, great idea. I'm out there anyway, right? So long story short, if it's possible at this point, I do a lot of work with Randy Carter and John Radka at Veterans Northeast Outreach. They help homeless veterans. So while I'm out giving care packages, I always ask homeless people, do you know anybody that's out here that's a veteran? And we've already helped one veteran get off the street, Steve Gonzalo. He's at Veterans Northeast now. Last week, there's this guy that we've been looking for a year and a half. His name is Ricker White. And every time I go to a soup kitchen, every time I give a care package to a homeless person, every time I see a homeless person panhandling, I stop and I ask him, hey, you know a guy named Ricker White? I understand he's a veteran and he's out here, but I don't know what he looks like and I've never seen him. And we've not been able to find this guy. I was actually starting to wonder if he even existed.
How is he on your radar at that point?
Well, because when we cleaned out Tent City, there was an area in Lawrence under the bridge called Tent City, and the city took everything down and cleaned it out because it was really kind of a criminal enterprise down there. And a gentleman named Anil, who was the homeless coordinator for the Lawrence Mayor's office, Dan Rivera's office, and I were down there one day, and he said, Tom, I know that you like to help homeless veterans, and I just want to let you know that there's a guy out here that I met. He actually met him, whose name is Ricker White, and he's a veteran. He was in Vietnam. And so that was like a year ago, right? So I've been looking for this guy ever since. So just by happenstance, we got a call from a girl named Carrie who runs a soup kitchen that I never knew existed behind the Boys Club along the river on Bay State Road in Lawrence. And she said, I've got a couple of guys that come down here to eat at least a couple times a week, and they're both veterans, or at least they both say they're veterans. And if you want to come down and meet them, I'll be happy to make the introduction. So we did. I went down last Saturday. Met with this elderly gentleman. He was in Vietnam. He was on an aircraft carrier. I'm listening to his story. And I said, look, we've got friends at Veterans Northeast Outreach, and under like a day or two, we'll get you into veteran housing. You'll never have to sleep on the street again. Like, if you're really a veteran and you're not lying to us, we'll help you. And no, I don't want that. I have a lot of freedom out here. And okay, fine. I said, listen, if you ever change your mind, let me know. So that night, he sleeps at the bus station on Common Street in Lawrence. I pulled up and I gave him a couple of blankets, and he said, I've been thinking about it. If you want to meet with me tomorrow, I might be ready to go to veteran housing. It's really cold out here. So I said, good.
But he wanted one more night.
One more. So I said, all right, fine. So the following day, Randy Carter from Veterans Northeast Outreach, who's just an amazing individual. He's a veteran. Abraham, I'm sorry, I don't know his last name, also came with us. We did an interview with this gentleman. And while we're talking to him, I said, now, I'm sorry, what is your name? And he said, you can call me Rick. I said, well, like, what's your real name? Like, what's your full name? He said, Ricker White. And I almost fell off my chair.
No kidding.
I'm like, you're the guy I've been looking for a year and a half that's been out. How long have you been out here? He's like, a year and a half or so. Last night, he spent the night in his own bedroom, in his own apartment, at Veterans Northeast Outreach in Haverhill on Reed Street. He went to Bedford on let me back up real quick. So he said he wanted to go, and we met with him that following day, and Randy Carter tried to get him into a unit that night. Normally, if we can find a veteran on the street and I can get him in my car, we can put him in a unit that night. Like, he'll have his own bedroom, his own place to stay, warm, with food in the fridge, with food in the cupboards. The people at Veterans Northeast really have an amazing facility there. And we couldn't get a unit for him that night. And he said, that's okay, I'll sleep at the bus station tonight, pick me up in the morning. So we walked away, and, everybody was kind of feeling good, but I was feeling kind of crappy because it was cold, and I knew that night he was going to be sleeping at the bus stop. And so I was on Facebook Live, and I was doing an update for the people on my Facebook page because they show up at my office every day with, like, bags of clothes and socks and things for homeless veterans when I run into them. And this woman named Sabrina Shepard, who I've never met, popped up on my Facebook page and said, Tom, if you want to go back and pick him up, I just called the Holiday Inn Express and I booked a room for him for the night. If he's going into veteran housing tomorrow, he shouldn't be sleeping on the street tonight.
Wow.
Now, this is not a woman I've ever met. She's not someone I know. She's not someone I've ever corresponded with. I don't think she came to our charity bash. She's just someone who follows us on Facebook. So this morning I texted Randy. That was on Monday night. So Monday night he spent the night at Holiday Inn. He gave them no problems. Randy and Abraham picked him up on Tuesday morning. They brought him to Bedford because if you're a veteran, you got to go through like the physical and the intakes.
Yeah.
Last night he spent the night in a room. So we got Steve Gonzalo and we now have Ricker White, two guys that were a month ago sleeping on the street in the cold, who now have their own places because they're veterans and they serve their country and they goddamn well deserve it.
Absolutely.
So that was I thought that was a great story. I think Randy Carter and John Radka and Abraham and all of the guys at Veterans Northeast Outreach, they've done such an amazing job at setting up a facility so that if you're a homeless veteran, or even if you're not a homeless veteran, if you're a veteran that just needs help with something, you can go there and it's like one-stop shopping. They'll walk you through benefits. They'll help you fill out your paperwork. If you're having problems with your health insurance, if you're having problems with the VA, they will help you. And the best part about Veterans Northeast is that if you donate $100 or you donate $1, 100% of what you give goes to a homeless veteran. All of their administrative costs are covered by grants from the VA. So there's no overhead for these guys. They go to work every day. They get paid for by grants. And so the people who donate stuff, 100% of what you donate is going to go to an actual homeless veteran. And I can't say enough about them. I would like to get them on the show at some point to have just talk about it a little bit more, Jonathan. But that was our feel-good story of the week. Now, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with these guys. Sometimes they relapse, right?
Yeah.
And you find them back out on the streets. And some people who are addicted, sometimes they got to go through getting clean 3 or 4 times before it takes.
Sticks, yeah.
But the guys at Veterans Northeast are dedicated to working with these two guys and making sure they stay clean and making sure they stay off the streets. And I can't thank them enough for what they do. Because in the United States of America, the most powerful country in the face of the earth in the history of humanity, there should be no such fucking thing as a homeless veteran.
Amen to that.
All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, Joe Espinola, candidate for state senate, We'll ask him about some of this stuff, maybe some of the stuff he can do to help some of the homeless veterans. Former police officer, we'll ask him about some of those public safety issues, too. Back after this on Paying Attention. Let's thank our sponsors. We want to thank Fred the Barber on South Broadway in Lawrence. A $15 haircut. You can't beat that. Fred the Barber is sponsored by Ken DeLuca, who is a customer of Fred the Barber, who came to the office and said, I want to help your show and I want to help Fred the Barber, so I'm going to buy a sponsorship for Fred the Barber.
That's
and
awesome.
At some point in the next couple of days, I got to go get my hair cut again. So I shop with the people who do business with us, and my crew shops with the people who do business with us. So my writers, my advertisers, people who support our show, because they support us, they will do business with the people who are doing business with us. Then you get A&M Auto Body. We get our friend Angelo over there, Angelo Memolo over there, and he does great work on your car. So if you got a ding in your car, somebody hit you, you got a mechanical problem, you bring it to A&M Auto. He's on South Broadway in Lawrence on Inman Street. You drop your car off, you walk down half a block to Fred the Barber, get your hair cut while you're waiting, and you go back to pick up your car, and Angelo will take care of you. So what's the address there?
341 South Broadway, Lawrence, Massachusetts.
Then we got Joe Zingales, Rosanna Zingales-Lopez from Century 21. They have been with us from the very first edition of the Valley Patriot. They've been with us from the very first Paying Attention show, which was in 1999, back when he was Remax. He's not Remax anymore. Now he's Century 21, Team Zingales. And they sponsor our bash. They gave a $1,000 scholarship this year. They gave a $2,000 scholarship last year. And that money comes right out of their pocket. That's not like they're collecting money from other people and just using it like I do. They actually took money out of their pocket. So I don't know why these guys love me so much. I really don't. But Twin Lights, let me tell you how dedicated I am to helping my sponsors. The guys at Twin Lights Security needed an extra security guard. I'm not really a guard, but like an extra security guy to do private investigations and to do security for a certain thing in Boston. And they posted it on my page and asked if it was okay if they could use my page to solicit hiring people. And I said, you know what? As busy as I am, these guys sponsor the show. They sponsor the Valley Patriot. They give us $1,000 for the bash. I'm going to go work for these guys. So I called up Pat McLaughlin, and I said, look, you help us every single time we need something. Whenever I put out a call, you're there. If you need an extra person and you're short, I'll take the night off and I'll come work for you. And so I have been. I've been doing some work for them because they're helping us. And so there's no reason why I shouldn't be able to find a way to help them in the meantime. So if you need security, or if you're getting divorced and you need a private investigator, if you have a business and you need a private investigator or security, you want to call Twin Lights Security. They're based out of Gloucester, but they're very local. Communicating with my new wife on Facebook. She's in the Dominican Republic. She's 23 and she wants to become an American citizen. I said, hey, I can make that happen.
There you go, yeah.
I mean, it's going to be a quid pro quo, though, right? I mean, not for anything. But if I'm going to help you become a citizen, there's got to be something in it for me.
Oh, she can just walk up through Mexico.
Yeah, well, that's true. She could, but it's a long walk. Yeah. And she's in the Dominican, so she'd have to get to Mexico first. It might be easy to just marry me. So thank you. Welcome back. This is Tom Duggan on the Paying Attention podcast. 18,000 downloads in the first 3 months.
That's right.
And I'm willing to bet that April we've gotten even more. So I appreciate that. You can download the show on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Podbean, and Google Play. Did I miss one?
Oh, did you say iTunes?
iTunes, yep.
Yeah, you got it all?
Yep, and you can watch us on YouTube. Most people don't watch us on YouTube. We have like 9 people watch us on YouTube, and then 18,000 people downloaded with the audio, which is great. I think people just like listening to us in their iPod or their iPhone. In the studio today, we have Joe Espinola, who is a candidate for state senate. I was a little surprised when I saw that he was going to run for this because I really kind of thought like he was more like into the local stuff, selectmen, and maybe state rep, but I didn't really see him running for state senate. So when I learned that I said, we got to get him on the show because I don't think that people outside of the Drake-Lowell area really know who this guy is and what he's done. And I think he's going to be a great candidate. And so we thought we'd bring him in today and give a little pitch, and maybe I can pick his brain a little bit about how he feels about stuff. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing fantastic.
Right.
Thanks
First
for
of all,
having me,
thank you for
Tom.
helping out Charity Bash. Unlike
You're more than welcome.
Barry Feingold, who has more money than God and could have very easily written a check for $100 for a kid to get a scholarship from Lawrence High School. He chose not to do that. You did. You have way less money than he does. And Joe Espinola called and said, listen, if it's for a kid, I'm in.
Yes.
And he wrote a check for us, and we appreciate that. And I apologize for not thanking you with the microphone that night.
Oh, it was a great night.
We're going to make up for it here, though.
There you
so
go.
tell people a little bit about you. Who are you, and why did you decide you wanted to run, for, of all things, state senate?
My name is Joe Espinola. I actually was in law enforcement for over 20 years. I've taken the oath of office 4 times, and only one was as a politician. I'm currently the chairman of the board for Greater Lowell School Committee. And
That's got to be tough. School committees are brutal.
It does get a little bit challenging. We just went through a large rehab out there with a new construction project of $65 million. Ran into a couple of snags, but all in all, we had some really good people working for us, and it worked out great. And I have a construction background, so it helped me. As soon as I took my seat, we hit the ground running with things. And I also have a hazardous waste licenses. So
you know what people hear when they hear that, though? They hear corruption.
Yeah.
That's what they hear. They hear construction, hazardous waste. This guy's on the take.
Yeah.
But you were a former law enforcement officer, so
Yes.
that's probably not the case in your...
It's not. No,
Okay,
no.
all right.
I'm a volunteer. I've coached just about every sport that you can think of. Anytime there was a volunteer. And you mentioned things about veteran. I'm also on a board that you serve on, the honorary board for veterans, assisting veterans with our good friends John McDonald over there. And I know the guys from the Haverhill place.
Aren't they amazing?
It's just unspeakable. If anybody has a couple minutes or anything to help with, just drop it off. Everything is appreciable, and it's really such an amazing thing.
Yeah.
And you talked about these 2 gentlemen who, and I wholeheartedly agree with you, the 3 words that should be just wiped out of the English language is a homeless veteran.
Absolutely.
And there's no need for that. And it's just amazing to me how people are complacent with veterans and people sitting on the side of the road and sleeping on the streets, that they somehow have no uprising for them.
Yeah.
And people are now starting to say, well, we have all kinds of rallies and we have all kinds of benefits for illegal immigrants who come to this country, but we don't do anything for our homeless veterans or our homeless citizens, period.
Right.
And I'm sure you're aware that it's gotten a lot better, but for the last, 7 or 8 years, there were thousands of homeless people living in hotel rooms with 4 and 5 kids that had lost their house, lost their job through the recession and things like that. So, that we have to take what we're doing and try to throw it all out like Yahtzee and try to figure it out all over again. We got to start over, say, okay, why are we just throwing money at things all the time and not making a difference? I've been walking around in Lawrence and talking to the people that are in the service industries for homeless people and shelters. And actually, I went to a place that you were at, the Point. I think they called it the Point. And you weren't there when I went there. It was in Lawrence. And I forget the name of the place. I met them at the Merrimack Valley.
Was it Daybreak?
Yes.
Daybreak Shelter. I think Karina said that you would come by.
Yeah. So you look at the things, and we talked as a police officer, and as you know, I'm sure you've done this. I've tried to pull people off the side of the riverbanks in Lowell at -2, -15 degrees. But where they were going, they would rather take a chance on the side of the river than to go down to a shelter where it wasn't really a safe place for them, and they were afraid what was going to happen if they actually ended up at the shelter
Right.
because of one way or another, somebody they may not have got along with or whatever. So they'll take their chances on the side of the riverbank, which is horrible. And I've done that. And actually, I worked for Lawrence for a couple of years after I retired as a police officer. And we had volunteer nights that we went to the riverbanks in Lawrence, and it was the same thing. And you just look at it, and it's just overwhelming. People, I don't think people realize the problem that it is out there with homeless people that sleep on the side of the river, and we're getting into the I think we're getting into the good part of the seasons right now.
We're supposed to be anyway. We keep getting promised all this global warming. I'm still waiting for it.
Yeah, like Howie Carr says, we got 2 to 4 inches of global warming today.
Yeah. Well, that's the reason. One of the reasons when I go live on Facebook when we're doing some of the homeless stuff is I want people to see what I see when I'm driving around Lawrence, because most people don't drive around Lawrence. They live outside of Lawrence. They don't want to go in. So we try to show them what's really there. There are 4 or 5 locations where you got entire tent cities set up, and that never happened when I was a kid. I mean, you had homeless people when I was a kid, but you never had this. And the real shock of all of it is Lawrence is 90% Latino, but the homeless population is 90% white.
Yes.
And so you can't believe that that's not on purpose. Like, you have to believe that's on purpose.
Sure.
I mean, I very rarely run into a homeless Latino person in Lawrence. They're out there, but it's very rare that you run into them. Drive through the city of Lawrence, drive through the city of Lowell, look at the people panhandling. They're all white.
Yes.
And we've completely wiped out, through the last 8 years of Obama, and I'm not saying it's his fault necessarily, but I'm sure some of his policies had to do with it. We've wiped out our entire middle class of white people in this country, and they're trying to replace them with people from other citizens of other countries that are coming here illegally, because middle-class white people aren't voting Democrat anymore. I really think it's a political thing that's the reason why we're seeing what we're seeing.
It definitely has something to do with it. I believe that I come from two families of immigrants, Irish and Portuguese, and I grew up in Back Central Street in Lowell. And it wasn't really a very big neighborhood as far as wealth and income. My dad was a firefighter for Lowell. And he always joked about the fact that he made more in his first year of retirement than he did the first 18 years he was a firefighter.
Wow.
So he took a cut and pay of thousands of dollars back in the 60s to leave General Electric and take the job as a firefighter, his dream job that he wanted. He ended up working 32 years and he retired. And it's like, I was born and brought up in Lowell. It is the sister city of Lawrence. It's the same thing. You listen to people say things such as, people in Lowell say, do you want to be like Lawrence? I say to the people in Lowell, Lawrence is saying they don't want to be like you now. So we're paddling this ball back and forth, and it's been something that I personally believe, and I say this all the time, that I think the Democratic Party has held the people in Lawrence hostage for so long that they haven't come through with anything that they have promised them.
Right.
They say things, they're going to do this, and I'll tell you this, Tom, and you go around Lawrence a lot more than I do. I'm talking to people of every nationality, every color, and they're saying, I changed to unenrolled. I changed to unenrolled. They've been promising me DACA. They've been promising me whatever, citizenship. They've been promising me whatever it is that they've been promising. They've never come through. How long has it been? 25 years they've been promising to take care of comprehensive immigration reform.
Right.
How much longer do you have to wait for?
Right.
And it's just amazing to me that they can sit there. The Democrats, the progressive Democrats, can sit there and say that we want DACA, but we're not going to vote for it. Elizabeth Warren didn't even vote for DACA when it was put on the table. But she'll be out there tomorrow yelling and screaming that she is for DACA. But she's not.
And most politicians are phonies. If you look at the condition of Lawrence 25 years ago, and then you add up the millions, if not billions of dollars that have been pumped into the city from 25 years ago to today, and then you drive around Lawrence knowing that, where is it?
It's amazing.
Like, I drive around Lawrence, like when Willie got the $15 million bailout loan we talked about in the last segment, I'm driving around Lawrence, well, where's the $15 million? I don't see it. No new roads were paved. We didn't hire any cops. Actually, we laid off cops. We laid off firefighters. We laid off teachers. Where's the money? the Democrat Party has pumped millions, if not billions with a B, into Lawrence over the last 25, 30 years. And Lawrence sucks way more now than it ever did before. Lawrence is way more dangerous now than it was ever before. Lawrence has more problems than ever before. Lawrence has more violence, more drugs, more fentanyl. I mean, the rate of kids graduating that can speak, read, and write English is lower than it's ever been. So why do the people of Lawrence continue to vote for Democrats who make promises every year, pump millions of dollars into Lawrence that they never see? Like, it goes somewhere. We don't know where it goes, but it doesn't go to them.
And you brought up a good point when you talk about the kids not graduating speaking English. And it's important. You ask any Latino person that is of our age, anywhere in this country or in this world, that the people do well. You go on vacation, you go to Barbados, you go to Portugal, the people that are doing well for themselves, they speak English.
Right.
So when we have immigrants that come here, why are we saying we should let you learn through your native language?
Right.
No, you need to have the two languages. I wish I could speak two languages. I understand Portuguese. I don't know how to speak it. But my grandparents, when they came from Portugal here, I was able to answer them in English. They would speak to me in Portuguese. Mm-hmm. It wasn't allowed for me to speak to them in Portuguese because I was an American.
Right.
And that's the way it was. So it was, and let's, I mean, just as many immigrants as non-immigrants in Lawrence. It's not that like they want it, working around, looking, knocking on doors, walking around. The people who don't like illegal immigration the most are legal immigrants.
Yes, absolutely. I can tell you that for a fact.
And people don't understand that. And I've had at least a dozen people say to me, when they let all these people get automatic citizenship, who's going to pay me back my $40,000 I paid for my family to become citizens?
Right.
And you know what? What do you say to them, Tom? There's really nothing you can say. You're like, you're probably not going to get that back.
Right.
And it's a shame. And I think that it should be a process. And I think when you give people stuff, if I gave you $20 or you earn $20, it's totally different.
Right.
And you appreciate the earned $20 more than the given $20.
My mom used to say, if you have two kids and you buy one a bike for his birthday and you make the other kid get a paper route and buy his own bike, which one's going to take care of it more? The kid that had to go out and work for it is going to take much more pride in his bike. He's going to make sure he locks it up. He's going to make sure he doesn't leave it outside the store to get stolen. Whereas the kid that you gave it to, he's not going to care as much because it was just given to him.
Sure.
And it's the same principle. I guess my first question is, why are you campaigning in Lawrence?
Why?
Why are you campaigning in Lawrence? Lawrence is going to vote 9-1 Democrat straight down the ticket. And I tell every candidate, if you're a Republican or you're not a Democrat, unless you get a Z at the end of your last name, every minute you spend in Lawrence, you're losing votes somewhere else.
I just have to say this. I honestly feel...
You can feel free to disagree with me if you want.
No, I honestly feel that speaking to people in Lawrence, it's not the same as it was. I think it's going to be different. I'm not saying that they're all going to flip in Lawrence and become Republicans.
Yeah, no, they're not doing that.
It's not going to happen.
Especially Dominicans think that Republicans are Nazis.
Yes.
That's what they're taught when they come here.
Yeah, sure.
And it doesn't change when the media that they consume every day are all left-wing media outlets, radio, television, Univision, all of that stuff. It's all very anti-American, very anti-white people, very anti-military, very anti-police. And to them, if you're a Republican, that's no different than being a Nazi to a lot of them.
So you look at the potential voting block in Lawrence where you get the amount of people that come out to actually vote is very low. So there's 50% of the people that are eligible to vote that don't come out.
Right.
And those are the people that I want to convince to get back. I call them couch voters. They're the couch voters. They're saying, they have said 4 years now. My dad became one. It was horrible. It broke my heart for my dad to become a couch voter. He said, there's nothing that I'm going to do. My dad was a Korean War vet. When he couldn't get to the polls, I would drive him there. And then he got to a point in his life, he just said, I'm not doing it anymore because my vote's not making a difference because those people are saying things and they're doing different things when they get elected. So it doesn't mean anything to me. And to me, that's not anything that I want to be part of the conversation with Joe Espinola for Senate. I am a person who gets back to people. I am a person who is not afraid of the confrontations. I'm not afraid of the hard conversations. Matter of fact, I speak with people that are Democrats, like high Democrats, like our parents' Democrats. So your dad was a cop, my dad was a firefighter. Strictly Democrats, because Democrats were union people.
Right.
Not anymore. It's a whole different ballgame. But you look at these people now, they're saying it's not like it used to be. Democrats aren't the same. So if I can get some more people off the couch, and I don't need to crush Lawrence, but if I can just walk around in Lawrence and talk to as many people as I can.
If you can lose Lawrence 6-1 instead of 9-1, you have a chance to win.
And I agree with that.
Right?
Yeah. So it's amazing to me, but I guess I can leave it with this about my campaign and in Lawrence, is that if I can get around and maybe put a question mark or a light bulb over someone's head about what's going on and how they've been let down and how they've been led to the trough to drink with no water, if I can do that, then I will be successful at running this campaign, win or lose.
All right, so I guess my next question is, can you raise $50,000 to $60,000 to beat a guy like Barry Feingold, who's got more money than God?
No. Barry is, assuming he's going to come out on top, he just ran a race for treasurer, and he raised over $800,000 for that race. So it's going to be difficult, and the people that I know that are supporting me are aware of that, and they're actually motivated to move on. I did well on my first fundraiser a couple weeks ago, and I'm having another one coming up at the end May 10th at Long Meadow Golf Club in Tewksbury. So, we have five months or whatever, and you use the money wisely. And I think that if you have grassroots and you have people face-to-face contact, is much better than the money stuff that you can get. I mean, let's face it, money stuff is good. If you have a lot of money, then there are no blocks. There's no roadblocks. There's no speed bumps, and it's good to do. But so you just got to work it a little bit more smart than someone who has $800,000 to run.
All right, we're gonna kill the last break. We can kill the last break, right?
Yeah.
Just go straight through, Mr. Jonathan. So you're running as a Republican. You're running for state senate. And you're running in a state that is clearly a communist state, right? Massachusetts. This is the state that elected Bonnie Frank, Ted Kennedy, Jerry Studs, Deval Patrick. I could go on and on, right? Elizabeth Warren. How do you plan on breaking that when the media is against any Republican that runs in any race, when the Democrat Party really kind of controls the state? How do you plan on breaking through that? I mean, I know there's a lot of people who are going to be voting against a Republican just because of Donald Trump.
Sure.
How do you break through that? How do you get them to see you differently than they see the other Republicans running in the other races?
So my slogan that I come up with for my campaign is the difference between a Republican and a Democrat is a conversation. And
I like that.
I'm going
kind of long for a bumper sticker, but I like it.
So doesn't the Mass GOP. So what I'm saying is I need to get out. I need to get out into the community. I need to let people know that I am running as a Republican. This is the first time in my life that I've had a letter after my name other than a U or an I. And I've done it because I just don't want to be any part of the Democratic Party. And I have lots of good friends. You know the friends that I know that are in the Democratic Party. And quite frankly, some of them aren't really happy about everything that goes on in the Democratic Party. So the most of it is I have to get out there to everybody, because I have to say, like, more than ever right now, I don't think people care about R&D as much as they used to. And I think right now, with a small conversation with them, and all I say is that if you've been voting D for how long now, and you've got nothing.
Right.
So what's 2 years? Give me a shot, and then you can vote me out in 2 years.
Now, if you become a senator, you're going to be dealing with a lot of really important issues. You're going to be dealing with public record issues. You're going to be dealing with public safety issues, and you're going to be dealing with all the ridiculous, liberal social issues. You know, transgender bathrooms and all the crap that the Democrats push. Tell people where you stand on some of those issues, on some of those social issues. Are you one of these Republicans that are a social liberal but a fiscal conservative, or are you conservative across the board? Are you moderate? Like, how would you classify yourself? If there's people watching, maybe they're not partisans. If they're partisans, they've already made their mind up. Appeal to them. Tell them where you stand. Like, how would you categorize yourself?
I tell people that if there was a gray party down the middle, I would have a G after my name. Because some issues, and I've known you a little bit now, some issues on both sides are intriguing and interesting and important.
Right.
Whether you're a D or an R, there are some really important things on either side. I think that the Democrats, what happened with is you have one person who is offended by something, and a million people have to be offended by the correction for that one person.
Right.
And like, okay, so we can't think outside the box to find a bathroom for somebody to go in that they'll feel comfortable with, that doesn't make another 1,000 people uncomfortable with that person being in that bathroom. Not that they wouldn't be welcome in any bathroom in my school, at my place, but I think that when they make these decisions, and when I say they, I talk about the country club on Beacon Hill, when they make the decisions, it seems like they don't think about everybody in a whole. It's just that one block of people that will take care of them, and that'll get the American Civil Liberties Union off our back, and the other people are too busy maybe working or doing whatever, and they're not going to kick their feet up publicly.
Right.
But privately, people have had it. They want to know why it is that their rights are always being trampled on. I saw a thing the other day when you talk about opiates, and opiates is a big thing in Lawrence.
Yeah, I want to spend at least 5 minutes on that. Do we have 5 more minutes? Yeah, we do.
So I saw a sign the other day. A guy had a sign in Washington at one of the marches, and he said, "You want to ban an AR-15 when the AR-15 is pushed by somebody, and you think that's going to save lives. If you want to save lives, why don't you just ban opiates? Mm-hmm. Ban fentanyl. Ban it. Illegally sold. And the problem will go away. But the money behind it is what is powering the push. And I mean, it's just amazing. And like you were saying earlier, friends I have, I still speak to that are in law enforcement in Lawrence. And I remember when I first started in Lawrence in Lowell, I spent every other shift in Lawrence on Haverhill Street with the riots. Do you remember the riots?
I do remember, 1983.
Yep. So I was there every night, every other night. One shift in Lowell, one shift in Lawrence. That's how we did it, and that's how we did it. And it's come a long way, but behind the scenes wise, quietly, there is a scourge killing people. 1 in every 1,000 people in Lawrence in 2016 died of opiate abuse. That's unacceptable.
It really is.
It's unacceptable.
What's even more crazy is that, you know, all of these politicians of both stripes, of both parties, run around pretending things are crises when they're not crises, while they're ignoring the actual crises.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we see it in Lawrence, we see it in Lowell, we see the opioid crisis. It's hitting the suburbs now. It's hitting middle-class white America now. We've lost more people to the opioid crisis than we lost in Vietnam. It's outrageous. And yet, whether it's Elizabeth Warren, whether it's a Democrat, whether it's a Republican, there is no effort at the state level, and there's almost no effort at the federal level to do anything about the opioid crisis, to do anything about the hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions of people that are addicted, the people that have become homeless because of it. There really doesn't seem to be any kind of an effort at all. A lot of talking points, a lot of panel discussions, but very little people actually doing anything. What will you do?
It's going to be something. I mean, obviously you're shoveling up the stream when you talk about it. But I want to throw this out there. I lost my brother to an addiction, and
sorry to hear that.
He was 45. It was 17 years ago. It hits a sore spot for me, and the thing that's hard for me to swallow is that at any other given time in his life, I would have said, when he ended up succumbing to his addiction, he was in college. He just had that one breakdown, and that was it.
Wow.
And it's something to me that I believe, but what we're doing right now, and I say this with a heavy heart, and I say this with all convictions, what the people in Massachusetts that are making the laws right now, what they're doing is when the people jump out the window, they're throwing the net at them as they're going down. So what do? We go back to say no to drugs like Nancy Reagan. We put more police officers in the schools. And people say, well, that's going to cost a lot of money. Well, how much is Narcan costing us? So we have a twofold problem going on right now. We have the people who are already infected, and then we have kids that aren't infected yet. So when your mother said to you, don't touch that fire because it's hot, and when you touched it, it was hot, you knew not to touch it again.
Right.
We're not getting that anymore in our school system. It's all, just ridiculous things. We're not teaching kids to be mature adults to make their own decisions to say, look, opiates is bad. Drugs are bad. I took my son, he's 14, to a doctor the other day, and the doctor said to him, do you smoke pot? He says, no. Why not? And my son looked at me, looked at my wife, and he says, I'm asking you because I want you to be able to tell the people that want you to do it, and you don't want to do it.
Right.
So you tell them why you're not going to do it. So it's just little things like that, Tom. If we can just get back to the basics when it comes to opiates and just having decencies, building the family structure up again. The system, the entitlement system that's around right now doesn't work for the family.
Right.
If you are a woman who has 2 kids and you get married, you lose benefits.
Right.
What is that? What is that doing?
Sure.
That doesn't promote any family structures. If you are a person who has 2 kids and you're watching them, but you want to really go get a job, you want to get training, you want to. But if you go get a job and you make $100 a week, you lose your daycare.
Right.
So I think we need to put let's take this. All this whole system, look it together. And you have a woman who has 2-3 kids, right? Maybe she needs a break from her 3 kids, to go out and better herself, to feel good about that $20 that we were talking about. They have the $20 that's earned or the $20 that was given to them. And I think we can change the culture by just starting little baby steps.
Yeah. We only got about 4 minutes left. I know you said you toured the Daybreak Shelter. Karina Papalato at the Psychological Center runs that. And what I hear when I go down there, I'm there a lot, is that the elected officials don't care and don't do anything for the people who are already infected, for the people who are already homeless. If you become a state senator, can we get a commitment from you that places like Daybreak will be funded? I mean, they're dealing with 55 people to 60 people a night. I think their capacity is 50, and they overstock. And they spend a lot of money. I mean, they have to buy laundry detergent because when homeless people show up, they have clothes and they do their laundry. They buy them food. They feed them in the morning for breakfast, and they're getting no help at all. They get, by the way, $0 from the city of Lawrence, if you can believe that, right? So as a state senator, you're going to be in charge of funding. Can we get a commitment from you that not necessarily the Daybreak Shelter itself, but places like the Daybreak, that you'll help increase their funding to help the problem at that level? I mean, it's important to educate kids not to do drugs, but I think it's more important the people that are addicted now, the people that are homeless now, that there's some kind of a path for them to get back into society.
So, Tom, having that said, when I'm out, my experience as a police officer, my volunteering in Lowell, the Boys Club, the Y, all those places, when I met with the people at Merrimack Valley Food Bank, I just brought it up, and I said, it always seems to me that you're fighting over the same pool of money. Mm-hmm. And when you get that little bit of your chunk of money, that you're duplicating efforts. And it seems like you're doing this, they're doing this, but no one's doing that or before the middle part of it.
Right.
And I said it almost seems like no one is getting across the finish line. No one's able to get across the goal line, so to speak. And one guy said to me, "That's unbelievable. I've been trying for." His mother was a worker at the shelter that he was in. He's been there for 40 years. He said to me, there used to be a collaboration of these services in like a board that would make sure that there's a database that people weren't duplicating, double dipping or whatnot, so that there'd be more for other people to help them out. And he said, "I've been trying for years, months, whatever, to get this collaboration back together so that we can all get on the same page." And I believe that if you get it, people genuinely want to help their neighbors. They don't want to be ripped off. And if we can get everybody on the same page, find out what is the needs, how do we distribute them, and how do we guarantee that with a low minimum variance of people double dipping, that we take care of that. And I will promise to bring the money to all of my districts and across the state of Massachusetts.
That was a long way to go to actually get an answer, but what I like about you is I got an answer. If I asked Barry Feingold, he'd talk for 20 minutes and not answer the question.
I just thought it was important to tell you what I'm getting when I'm talking to the people at the shelters, that they need more than money.
Right.
They need some sort of a collaboration. They need some more organization, just because they feel that when people come in and they're looking for something, they can tell when somebody really needs something from them, when somebody really needs something. And when they don't have it, it's very heartbreaking for them not to be able to not give it to them.
One of the issues that we're running into, and I know we're running short on time, one of the issues that we're running into, at least that I've seen, is you've got the Daybreak Homeless Shelter, you've got the Good Shepherd Center, you've got things for people to try and get them off the street and feed them today. Once they go through that program, though, there's very little for them next. There's very little for them to transition into permanent housing. It seems like there's a lot of, not a lot of money, but a lot more money in getting people off the street today and feeding them today, and much less money and resources and political commitment from people. For those who've gone through Daybreak, maybe they've been at Daybreak for a couple of months, they want to get job training, they want to now get into some housing, they're trying to get their act together, and there is no next step for them. I know. The Psychological Center has some programs for them, but those programs aren't adequately funded, not for the need that's out there.
Oh, and Tom, the big thing that I can hang my hat on is I'm on a board of a vocational school, and all four of my
God bless you for that, by the way.
All four of my districts have a vocational school in their district. Why can't we use that school to train these people?
I love that idea.
To get a job. Veterans can use their veterans benefits so that they can train to be a plumber, train to be an electrician.
I love that idea.
I don't know why no one thinks about these things.
Can we talk about that? We have to end the show, but can we talk about that after the show?
Absolutely.
At some point? Because I'd like to do a story on that. I think it's a brilliant idea. We've got all these vocational schools that actually train people in the trades and even in computers. I know the Greater Lawrence Voc has computer
They're fantastic
training.
computer schools.
And when the kids aren't there, like at the end of the school day, why not let some of these homeless people, especially homeless veterans, come in and train for stuff? I think that's an amazing idea.
How awful, and then we thought about that before.
Right. I know. Well, this is it. This is one of the reasons why talk shows like this are so important.
And you and I pay for these schools.
Right, we do.
And so don't some of these people that want to use them.
Right.
Yeah.
So why don't you remind people, we have to go off. I want to thank everybody, especially our sponsors, Twin Light Securities, Century 21's Teams and Gallus, Fred the Barber,
Angelo
at A&M Auto Body. Why don't you give a final pitch for people? How do they find you online? How do they make a donation? And talk about your next fundraiser.
My name is Joe Espinola. I'm a retired police officer from Lowell, Massachusetts. I currently reside in Dracut. I've lived in a similar situation in Lowell as Lawrence. I know what it's like. I know where it needs to be. When I started in Lowell, it was a city that was in disrepair. And it's time to grab your city by the horns again. My goal is to make Lawrence a better place for people to live and empower them not entitle them. Let's empower people, not entitle them. And I think the fish story comes in big when you do that. You can get a hold of me at Joe Espinola for Senate.com, and you can also come and visit me. There's a link on there to donate, and you can all come and visit me at May 10th at the Long Meadow Golf Club in Tewksbury, Massachusetts.
I will try to be there if I can. Joe Espinola, thank you. Good luck on your campaign.
Thank you very much.
We're kind of rooting for you on the Republican side for sure. I'm Tom Duggan. Thank you very much to the voice of God. We didn't hear much from you today, but
That's
I
all right.
appreciate it. And next week on the show, we're going to have Essex County Sheriff Kevin Coppinger, who's going to come in and talk about the opioid crisis and how the Sheriff's Department's dealing with it. And he's also going to talk about some of the guards that they've fired for selling drugs, dealing drugs, and some of the crazy things that went on.
It's rampant.
When he first came on board, and he's trying to clean that up. So,
And don't forget, Tom, the difference between a Republican and a Democrat is a conversation.
Thank you to Rich Russell, our photographer for here. Sean the barista for my fine coffee. Come by Two Guys Smoke Shop and come upstairs to Studio 21 and get a cup of coffee from Sean. He flies it in from Belize. No, where does he fly it in from? Uganda? Where is it? Tanzania. I got it right. Eventually. Melvin Taylor says we got to go home already. Can you believe the show is over already? If Tucker can do it in an hour, there's no reason why we can't do it in an hour. I'll see you guys next Thursday. Don't forget the Valley Patriots on the streets, and you can get our book, Heroes in Our Midst, from the pages of the Valley Patriot on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and in the Valley Patriot office. Thanks, guys.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.